Welcome to the show. This show is brought to you by firstseedfoods.com. That's healthy, oil-free, ghee-free, organic Indian food that comes to your door. I love Indian food, but I don't like eating oil, so this is the way to have healthy, organic Indian food. You could get a week's worth sent to your door. Go to firstseedfoods.com, put in Glenn 10 for $10 off your first order. Mike, do you like Indian food? This is our guest, Mike Young. I'll tell you all about him in a second, but first, do you like Indian food, Mike?
I don't. I love Indian food.
Oh, all right. You got to try this. Firstseedfoods.com, Glenn 10 for
Yeah,
$10 off your first order. Mike Young has a nonprofit called a plantbaseddiet.org, and he wears a lot of hats. He's got farms. He has a travel, he curates fun. He takes
yeah.
people on healthy travel adventures. And here's the thing about Mike Young. When I first met him, he told me he wanted to live to 150. And frankly, Mike, I thought you were a little nuts. But you have gained so much credibility in my eyes because it's 2 or 3 years later and you're still going. You're
Yeah.
getting closer and closer and closer to that goal. And I realize now that you may know what you're talking about. So, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks. It's great to be back.
You've been on twice before, and you told me that this time you're going to talk about something that I think you've never talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
Something involving economics, I think, and tying
Yeah.
that to health and longevity. So, do you want to
Yes.
dive into that or you want to talk about something else first?
Well, I can just give a quick background on how we got here. This is
Okay.
exclusive to your show. This is a new talk that my wife Denise and I are developing. And as you said, I've aged, so I'm still alive. I'm
Right.
55 years young,
Yeah, and you
as I
you
like to
look the
say.
same as you did 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I just posted some pictures on a memory came up on social media, so I reposted them. I
Uh-huh.
think everyone thought they were pictures that were taken yesterday or this week, but
Uh-huh.
they're actually eight years old. so,
All right.
so I like the saying from 8 years
So
ago.
that is proof that either you are staying young or 8 years ago you looked a little old. So we don't know which way to go with that.
Yeah. Well, let me clarify something too. That I like to say this as a disclaimer that I don't do anything to alter my appearance. All right. I don't
Okay.
have because I know even for guys, Botox and fillers are being used these days. All kinds of cosmetic procedures, makeup, hair colorings. I could go on and on. I don't do any of that. So what
Right.
you see is what you get. And if I look young, it's because of the lifestyle, the chosen
Right.
habits. That's it.
I, on the other hand, have been dyeing my hair gray because people thought I looked ridiculously young.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's
So,
refreshing to hear people that we can have a conversation without worrying about un- unknowingly divulging a secret that someone's doing, because that's how it
right.
usually is in this space, unfortunately.
Well, I'm
So,
not divulging any secrets.
so let me just give you a little background. Yeah, this is a new talk that we have not fully developed yet. However, it is like the next stage of what we've been working on. Because, like you said, I feel like the average person should be able to double their lifespan via their chosen habits, good habits. Unfortunately, the reality is that in the world today, most of the bad behavior that's going to wreck your life and your health is completely legal. That's the kind of world we live in. And unfortunately, when you combine that with the fact that most people of younger generations, and I'll say specifically Gen Z, which is they're in their 20s now, and Gen Alpha, who are in their teenage years. I've already been hearing things from people saying, "Hey, I will never be able to afford to buy a house." Okay, now if somebody's growing up like that, and actually most people in Gen Z, I'd say if you've ever talked to anybody or have watched videos of Gen Z, because they're on YouTube now, this is common. I never heard this in the past. 10 years ago, I never really heard this. I heard, you got to work hard, but now things are becoming out of reach. I mean, I'm talking houses, I'm talking cars, I'm talking medical bills, I'm talking college and universities. All these things have grown at a rate that is dramatically faster than the average wage that someone's getting. And I don't know if you've looked into a lot of the statistics with that, but that I believe is irrefutable. The gap between inflation and average wages over time. You know, I was born in 1970, and I think that the American dream, however you describe it, in the 70s and 80s was attainable. And it was no problem. We're going to do this. We're in the greatest country ever. Uh, the opportunity is there for anyone and everyone. And you look at the youngest generations now, and people in their teens who's Gen Alpha, most of them are chronically ill, right? I mean, most people have some form of metabolic syndrome from an early age, yeah, even below teenage years now. And I never used to see that when I was growing up. I graduated high school in 1988. Never really used to see that. So the health part, I believe, is the key to solving what we can solve with the financial part. And the reason I say that is because I think a lot of things aren't going to change. Like all the bad behaviors that you and I know harm people's health that are legal, I don't think they're going to be declared illegal, unfortunately. I think that's the governments are nowadays run by the large corporations. And the last thing the large corporations are going to want to do is make use of their foods or drugs or whatever it is, bad habits, illegal, right? They're not going to do that. That's never going to happen. And then the other part of it is the inflation part of all the things like cars, houses, any kind of goods that aren't made in China, it seems like, okay, have gone, just like basic things you need for life have gone out of control. And the reason I see behind that is the quantitative easing that's used by the government, or the printing of the fiat currency, which devalues the currency and it jacks up the cost of everything. So unfortunately, we can't control that either. Okay, these are two major things. And the politicians are not going to control it on either side. I've never even heard of anyone trying to say we're going to stop the money printing, because no politician ever wants to get stuck with a bad economy. And as long as that's legal, which it is, and I don't see that changing, we're going to keep seeing more runaway inflation over time. So what can we control? That's what I'm wondering about. So as you know, Glenn, I've been here on your show a couple of times. We've talked outside of that too. And I think you know that our goal is to improve society for future generations. That's what we want to do through our nonprofit. And the way we're going to do that is by our mission of eradicating non-communicable disease in humans. And we have a framework of how to do that. It's a 12-step program, just like AA, okay? Because all the stuff's legal, but you got to get off of it. It's the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine in combination with the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food. That's the standard we have here. If you want to know what that is, go to healthyveganfood.info. That's on our website. So basically, I have quizzed LLM since the last time I've been on your show. And I said, hey, LLM, which is ChatGPT or Grok, it's one of these AI apps, whatever one you choose, they all have access to the same information. And I quizzed it back and forth for a long time. First thing I wanted to know was, look, if we're trying to curtail non-communicable diseases, and we think that's a big deal, and we think it's going to save a lot of money and potentially save everyone, because I think the medical system, the way it goes right now, with everybody chronically ill, especially if you're over 50, it's just totally unsustainable. Not only from a financial standpoint, but from a mental health standpoint of the people that work in the industry that don't see patients getting better. That's got to be. I can't imagine not seeing most of your patients get better. I can't imagine that. So here's the thing. I said, what if we took this 12-step program, the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine combined with the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food, and we had humanity become compliant? And just let's, I know this is kind of a dream world, okay? But I said, well, what if all of humanity was fully compliant? And this is really just changing habits. Of course, it's changing the food, but it's also changing a lot of other habits, bad habits for good habits. And the answer is that I think what I got was 98 to 99% of all non communicable diseases could be eradicated if everyone just complied. It's that simple. So, unfortunately, we know that the United States has like the highest per capita health cost expenditure in the world, and we don't even have close to the top of results. So it's a very low value system. That's why I say it's unsustainable. You have to have value there for people. So if we had the best results in the world for the highest amount of money, hey, that makes total sense. But if we're like more on the lower end, which we are in terms of results,
We're something like 44th in longevity.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's not something to be proud of with the amount of money that we're spending.
yeah.
There's a disconnect there. So the disconnect we believe is the basically the uh, epidemic of non-communicable diseases. And like I said, it's all just bad habits that are totally illegal, 100%. So the LLMs tell us that if everybody complied, we could cut 90% of our medical costs. Now I said, how do I get 90%? The reason why I got that is also by checking with the LLMs. And I had to ask many detailed questions to get to this level. I said, what percent of our medical costs here in the United States are non-communicable disease? And it turns out that right now we're at 90%. So if we could eliminate, 98 to 99% of those 90% of costs, we've almost made healthcare completely free for everybody. I mean, you're going to have freak things happen. You're going to have car accidents. Those things are not going to be covered by this, but they're hardly anything compared to simple habits and choices that people make that they can control their health. So, um, another question I asked the LLM, just to give you some more understanding as to how we got here and how I know that we're here, is that, I was born in 1970, and I said, well, give me a year by year breakdown and analysis of what the percentage of healthcare costs ended up being non-communicable diseases in the United States from 1970 every single year through 2025. And turned out that 1970, they said they didn't have very good records in the 70s, but they did all the research as best they could. And they said it started out between 60 to 65% of all medical costs in 1970, which I'd say that's okay. I mean, these habits aren't illegal, right? I mean, if half the costs are going to that, I guess that's to be expected. But every single year, pretty much, it went up to get to the 90 that we're at now, and it's been that way for the past couple of years. So we're at the worst possible spot we could be in healthcare, and I think that what I see with younger generations being really hopeless, and that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the youngest generations because someone like yourself, I think, and me, I'm not wondering how I'm going to ever afford a house. I'm not chronically ill, you know. Um, I I have a decent outlook on life, but that's because things were different in the past. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the last decades before the internet, it wasn't that hard to earn a living. I mean, there was opportunity, and now I don't know if you've noticed this, but this is why I'm so concerned. This is why I feel like, of course, this is a grassroots effort because the law is not going to step in and make bad habits illegal. Okay, I mean, if anything, I'd say that the trend is to make anything that's a habit completely legal, regardless of what it is. So that's my basic overview, and I'm wondering if you've ever thought about this, Glenn, and maybe you have some questions for me because
Well,
I've had a lot
well,
more
well, I
thinking
do have
involved.
this question. Of course, we agree, as do most of my guests, that people are eating the wrong diet and that we could save a lot of costs and increase health and longevity if people would only eat like human beings. They
Yeah,
could get a lesson from our cousins, the great apes, and eat, I would say, all plant food. The great apes, some of them eat some termites. I don't know why. I'd like to speak to them about it, but if you're gonna, it wouldn't be such a bad trade-off if you ate a 98% plant diet and ate 2% termites. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
we have some termite activists out there who wouldn't like that, but you know,
Well, I would
it
agree on that.
could even
And
be
I
good
would,
for your house. I mean, that could
it
be good
would
for your house if you
be
eat
good for
termites.
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not going to take a strong position against eating termites, but I've never done it, and I'm not necessarily recommending it. But I'm saying, look to our cousins. How do they eat? I mean, does it make any sense that we should eat more like a tiger than a chimpanzee? That makes no sense to me. So, virtually all my guests, I'm sure, would agree with you that we should eat a whole plant food diet, and that we will enjoy better health and longer life if we do so. I'm trying to figure out how that relates to the price of houses.
Yeah.
Yes, there would be less money wasted on medical care, but does that necessarily make houses more affordable? Where's the connection there?
Sure. There's a connection because of some of the work that we're doing and some of the things that we've discovered in different projects that we have. The first thing is we know that most people in the United States are chronically ill. I think that the average person in the US eats 60% processed foods, or I think it might even be ultra processed foods. And these are the reasons why, right? And yeah, life's become unaffordable. So I guess what we're seeing now is if you look at the youngest generations, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, you see and hear talk regularly about leaving the country, about going somewhere else. And the reason why is because the opportunities are there. Like when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, I never felt like, oh, I got to leave some other country for better opportunities, right? It always just seemed like, no, of course, this is the place. I can make what I want out of my life. It's not that difficult. You got to put in the hard work, but you can do it. Nowadays, it seems nearly impossible because of the costs. That's one of the things. And of course, I look around, and these generations are, of course, been very, very much affected by all the divorces that have happened on previous generations. I was somewhat affected by that, not to the degree that everybody is nowadays, the younger people. And then they see that everyone's chronically ill, or most people, even people their own age, younger people. So what's the answer? Well, I think Glenn, you know that we have some projects in Ecuador in some intentional communities, and you can live there and grow your own food. And when I say food, I'm talking about whole plants, right? Not processed vegan food, not processed plant-based food. I'm talking the real health optimizing things. And it's very affordable. It's probably like a third of the cost of what it is in the United States, which means that people can afford it. And now, how and why can they do that? Well, it's because of remote work, right? If you get a job that you can do remote, and obviously not every job is like that. Maybe some people want to be a hands-on person that has to be there, like a surgeon, although you can't do remote robotic surgery. I know now that's a thing, or a doctor, but you could do telemedicine, or a lawyer, but you could also do legal stuff, I guess. I mean, but but even so, I never had the opportunity in the 70s and 80s, and I'm sure you didn't either, unless you were in some secret society I didn't know about, where you could work remotely, right? So all you need is the internet, and now they have Starlink available, and we've used it. It works. That's all I can tell you. It doesn't matter where you are. As long as you got solar panels to power that thing and your device, you're in business. Doesn't matter where you live. So you need almost nothing. The housing's a lot less in the Amazon rainforest of Ecuador, and also you don't need climate control. So that savings there. There's so much savings, and you could be around like-minded people who aren't chronically ill. You know, I
All
mean,
right.
these are all.
So the solution you're getting at is get a skill that you could do remotely and move to a nation where you could live more cheaply. Is that the solution?
That's the easy solution because that's the no-brainer that's out there right now. You don't need to change any laws. You don't need to get any certain person in office. And as I described before, I don't think that's going to work anyway because they all work for the large corporations at the end of the day. They are not going to, you know, t- you know, they're not going to do anything that's going to harm their business. That's the
Hmm.
problem.
Okay. So the advice, not bad advice, is gain a skill that you could do remotely and be open to living as an expat.
Yes, and most like people our generation, I'd say like even most millennials or Gen X baby boomers, they're like, no, I'm not going to do that. But that's because we don't have to do that. Okay, there's a much different motivation when you look at the world being set up to create a massive failure for you look at things in a much different way. And it's hard for me to understand that, except for the fact that I've watched a lot of content from younger generations, talk to people. We have our own family members who are in younger generations. I see the struggles, the financial struggles, and I see the health struggles, and they're all interrelated. I mean, if you have to live in a country where you can't easily grow your own food outdoors all year round, and it's incredibly expensive, why would you want to live there? It's not like you can't communicate with your relatives anymore. You got video chat available to you 24/7 for nothing. I remember back in the 90s how I had to watch and time my long distance phone calls because it was so expensive back in the 90s. I mean, now no one even cares. I could carry my device around. We could be interviewing all day live on the internet 24/7, right? We could. I mean, anybody could talk to the relatives. It just requires an open mind. And people who are younger, like I said, they're running into a roadblock everywhere they turn. So that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of content about people saying which country is best to move to from the US. And not all of them are better, but many of them are better. And one other thing I wanted to touch on before we move on to anything else is that the food, healthy vegan food. We mentioned, like you mentioned, the word whole food plant-based. I want to mention to everybody out there, we don't use that word. I did not use
Actually,
that.
no, I'm going to object. I said whole plant food. I prefer the term whole plant food. I don't love the term
Okay.
plant-based.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
It's probably for the same reason is that when I talk to the AI apps and got all these statistics and wanted to hear about the results if everybody complied, the 6 pillars that we use are no animal products, no alcohol. You have to have actual plant fiber in the dish, and then you can have no added oil, and you must limit fat to 10% of calories, no added sodium or salt, and no refined sugars added. So that's the definition that you have to comply to, and it has to be mostly organic, as organic and chemical free as possible. In addition to that, that's what the AI used when determining if we could eradicate non-communicable disease. So you have to eat very close to nature, is my point. So if you're eating as close to nature as possible, it's best to be in an area where you can easily gather foods that are grown outdoors. I know indoor farming is a thing. I don't necessarily think that it's the best way to go for a number of reasons. I could be proven otherwise, but I still think it's best to be in a place where you can have locally grown whole plant foods available all year round. I think that there's a big benefit for your health.
All right. Now, for those of us who remain in the United States, you curate fun. So you
Yeah.
have cruises, you have events, dinners. So tell us about some of your fun events.
All right. Well, yeah. Well, what we've pivoted to, because we used to do Veg Fest and other vegan festivals, is what we call health optimization events. And you may ask, well, what does that mean? Everybody talks about health. Well, we have it defined on our website. We have a section with terms. So health optimization means a fully balanced state of health that's verified by an absence of non-communicable disease. So we are extremely clear on our goal. We're like, well, I already know from talking to the AI apps and the LLMs that we have to adhere to this food standard here in order to eradicate non-communicable disease. So basically the framework of all of the events that we do is the 12 steps I've mentioned, which is the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine in combination with the 6 pillars of healthy vegan food. So if you get food at any of our events, rest assured it will not harm your health to the best of our knowledge. And this standard is always evolving, but that's what we do. We provide food that doesn't harm humans, and we provide fun. Because if you think about it, like we talked about earlier, if life is nearly impossible for the younger generations in the United States and everybody's chronically ill, whenever you walk into a store, you see all these printed colors of like fake ripe fruits and stuff. Like that's what's available because nothing really grows year round in most parts of the United States. So basically by being in the United States, and that's where most of our events are, is the United States. We do travel a lot, but most of our events are based out of the US. Um, Going to our events gives you a positive peer pressure because anywhere else you go in the US, you're surrounded by bad choices, all of which are legal, as we talked about earlier. So you're going to succumb to the negative peer pressure. That's just human nature. You become like the five people you spend the most time with. So when you come to our events, you're going to spend time with five other people, hopefully that you can spend more time with as you go, and you'll slowly but surely evolve. Your journey will progress in a good way, and I mean, I'm all about getting better as you get more years because you have to. In order, like if I'm going to make it to 150, I have to keep getting better. So the only way I know, being 55 now, to continue to get better is to hang around other people that also want to do the same thing. So we have a health optimization cruise, health optimization safari. So safari is in December, the cruise is in January. You can find out about them at healthoptimizationtravel.org. And then we have local events because we're in certain areas. We're in Florida, we are in the DC area, we're in Raleigh, North Carolina, and coming up in Florida, because we're down in Florida more in the cold months, because that's where the food's growing actively outdoors, is in Florida in the US. We have like an Indian food event. I know you talked about your sponsor, which is sounds like an awesome product there at the beginning. I need to check it out.
Oh, you've got to
Uh,
try it. Firstseedfoods.com. $10
yes.
off with Glenn 10 use as your coupon code.
Now that'll give you each one of those, I guess, will give you one dish, right? We have upcoming on the 4th of November, which in many years is an election year. It's Tuesday the 4th, but it's not this year. This year, it's our Health Optimization Indian Buffet in Naples, Florida. And we're going to have at least 10 dishes that all
Right,
meet our six pillar healthy vegan food standard. And it's just, I cannot wait. I love Indian food, but I don't like harming my health. And
right.
so what you have there in front of you is a good option if you're at home. And then our event is to kind of a social event. You know, it attracts people who also love Indian food, just want to get way more than you could ever make at one time, and have an
If,
affordable price. And that's what that's about.
if I were in
Uh,
Florida, I would definitely go to that event. The question is, do I travel to Florida to make it? I don't know. But
yeah,
I would,
well,
you see, my wife and I would love it if there were a community, not just of vegans, but of people eating a healthy whole plant food diet. And we
yes.
would love to join such a community. I haven't found such a community in the country. I'm kind of counting on you to start one.
Yes. Well, I got the answer for you. I mean,
Okay.
we talked about this before, and we've also been evolving towards this since the last time I was on the show, which was in the spring of this year. Uh, Basically, we've got our own health optimization clubs. That's what we have. Now, it's not a buy-in community, but it's just a group of people that are like-minded that want to follow this six pillar healthy vegan food standard and six pillar lifestyle medicine standard. You know, that will ensure that you take the best care of your health possible as long as you comply. And so that's the positive peer pressure. So since we're heading down to Florida now, that's what these events are under. We have a what we call Southwest Florida Health Optimization Club. That's who's hosting the event in Naples, Florida, with the Health
How many
Optimization
people are
Indian
in this
Buffet.
club?
Well, we have groups on Facebook. Believe it or not, the I think that we have a dedicated one we just started up that has maybe 25 or 30, but
That's not bad.
it's based off of what we call SWFL lifestyle, and that was our original lifestyle medicine focused group, and that group has like 1,100 people in it.
Uh-huh.
So we didn't really get close with the standard here, the six pillar healthy vegan food standard, until recently. And that's why we rebranded everything as a health optimization club or travel event or restaurant event like this Indian one that we're doing. And so we've got those groups are active, I'd say, in the cold months, because that's when we're down there. We're up in the northern US on the East Coast when you can grow plants outdoors now, and that season's coming to an end. So we're going to head down to Florida, and we'll have this
Well,
Indian food event.
when you say northern U.S., I know you have a place in Virginia, but
Yeah.
you have a place further north?
Well, actually, we do. We don't have any projects though, because we don't have to go any further north actually than where
Okay.
we are now.
Okay.
But there's many other factors that go along with that. Yeah, we have a farm in the state of Virginia, in addition to a little condo where we live in Northern Virginia. And one of the interesting things here, actually, that we found with the work that we're doing here with the farm, we're growing grapes, cherries, and chestnuts at the farm, and we're doing it better than you could buy. We're doing zero animal products and zero chemicals. But one of the things we found recently is that there's something called a spotted lanternfly. I don't know if you heard of that or not. Spotted lanternfly.
You told me about it.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's come in from Asia. Somebody brought it over on a pallet of stone accidentally about 10 years ago, and now it's proliferated all over the east coast of the US. It may invade everywhere. And they love grapes and cherries, actually, which is what we're growing. And I was like, oh gosh, this, and they're everywhere. Here in the east coast US, especially this year, I see them everywhere. And they just suck all the good stuff out of the fruits and the plants. That's what they do. They weaken everything. And there's no natural predators, unfortunately. But turns out that they can't really survive long term above 3,000 feet elevation. So our farm is at 4,000 feet elevation. So we're actually not going to have any problems. I'm not going to have to do anything with chemicals or anything, which we didn't intend to do anyway. So that's something we discovered. But there's been other issues like that where people introduce invasive, non-native things to a country, and so this may be a bigger problem as time goes on for grapes and cherries, but it won't be a problem for us based on everything that I've found through AI and the research on that.
All right. Well, I'm counting on you to start a community of people
Mhm.
who eat whole plant foods and all live together at least for part of the year. I would have my
Yeah.
own subgroup within that community because I want to live longer than you. I'm older than you,
Yeah.
and I want to live to at least 160. And do you know why?
Why? I
The
don't.
main reason is I want to see if you make it to 150.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
I have to live over 160 to see if that happens. I'm just so curious about that.
Well,
So,
we're motivated. I'm motivated to start a community. We have some land in Florida, and some land where we've owned it for a while, and the intention has always been to have some type of a community of like-minded individuals that want to do the best they can for their health and that want to grow their own food as much as possible. And like I said, it would be zero animal products and zero chemicals, better than anything you can buy currently right now. So
well, we've got
believe
to
me,
get the whole world to follow a whole plant food diet, or Florida is going to be underwater, my friend.
you're right. See, that's the problem. The problem with Florida is the low-lying land and hurricanes. It's really
Yeah.
and the summers. The summers are unbearable. They're
Yeah.
oppressive in the summer.
Yeah.
So you have to have air conditioning. It's expensive to live there. You have to have that thing cranked up all the time.
So, have
So
you thought of getting land someplace further north, like Michigan?
well, we have our well, even Michigan, most of the land is kind of low. If you're talking about sea levels rising, I don't know what the effect is going to be there. But our farm is at 4,000 feet in elevation in Virginia. We don't have to worry about anything, regardless of what happens. And we have enough land there. But the thing is, you got winter, and you have nothing growing there. And that's the problem. You have to be kind of more like the Native Americans, right? And be migratory based on the seasons, which we don't mind doing because I think that also improves health. The habit of being in the sun regularly for that vitamin D, that's incredibly challenging in northern latitudes in the wintertime. And that's also why we have our safari in December and our cruise in January. The safari goes to Uganda, right at the equator in Africa, and the cruise is in the Caribbean, very close to the equator. So that's the thing. I mean, winter is it's fine if you want to hibernate, right? I mean, animals have adapted and by doing that, but I don't really want to do that. So you have to decide what you're okay with. But the rest of the year at our farm, we call it Mountain Ridge Farm because it's right on the mountain ridge. It's wonderful. You're immersed in nature and it's quiet and the weather's perfect. You don't need air conditioning at 4,000 feet ever, you know? And if it gets cold, which it does, we cut up the fallen trees. On we have enough property. We have close to 20 acres, and as the trees fall, I just cut them up with my electric chainsaw, and we burn them. That's our heat, And then we take the ashes and the unburned wood. Sometimes you get charred pieces that haven't burned fully. We add that to the compost. That's biochar, and that's actually beneficial for the plant. So everything's regenerative. Everything keeps going back into the food for your health
And
and for good
at
life.
your farm, what's the closest big town or city?
Well, the county seat is about 15 minutes away, and that's the biggest town in the county, and there's 150 people that live there.
So that
So,
doesn't count. That does
yeah,
not count. So how far away is a place, with a Whole Foods or something?
Whole Foods. All right, we'd have to go to Charlottesville, Virginia, and
How far are you from Charlottesville?
I'd say 2 to 2.5 hours
Two and
to
a half
drive there.
hours. So you're
Yeah.
north of Charlottesville?
West. There's a
West.
road called State Route 250 that goes
Mhm.
right through the Charlottesville area. If you just keep going out on 250, almost all the way to the West Virginia border, that's where
Okay.
we are.
All right. I've driven past the area of your farm on a visit to Charlottesville.
And we're there intentionally because I also think there's health benefits to surrounding yourself in nature, being immersed in nature and forest bathing, because ours is mostly a wooded property of old growth trees. I mean, I recognize and I feel the health benefits from being in that type of an environment. I don't know if you ever thought about that part of it, but that's also in my book. I talk about a lot of the sun and nature. It's just and forest bathing is a relatively new thing to the U.S. anyway. But I do believe it's where the phytoicides are released out of the leaves of the plant while it's in the growing season. And this doesn't happen outside the growing season. That's the problem. But during the growing season, when you're under that tree canopy, you're breathing these phytoicides in, which are actually good for you, even though it has a side at the end. Usually, like insecticide is bad, right?
Right.
Kills things, but they're actually been shown to be beneficial to human health. So the more time you spend there, the better for your body. And obviously, you can't really get much of that when you're not under a tree canopy. That's the key.
So you do certain things uh, beyond having a diet that is similar to mine of whole plant foods. You do certain other things to increase longevity. One of them you just talked about, living in nature as much as you can. Another one is that you stand up all the time. You're standing right now because
Yep.
standing is better than sitting. So, do you
Yeah.
ever sit down? Do you sit down when you have dinner?
Well, yes, that's a good time to sit down. Another time is when we're in the car, which we are a lot. We Denise and I
It's
travel. Denise,
safer driving when you're
it is.
seated than when you try to stand and drive.
Yeah, I tried one time with my head out the sunroof, holding the wheel, but I couldn't quite reach the pedals.
Yeah,
It
it's
doesn't
not
work.
safe. So, so you do sit when you eat,
Yes.
okay?
And I would say, you may have heard it, sitting is the new smoking. Definitely believe that. I mean, anytime you're choosing to do something where you could have chosen to do some aerobic exercise or some kind of movement or balance or coordination, then you're just you're pulling your health out of balance. That's the basic idea, and everything's about balance.
All
Every
right,
single
let's see if
concept of
I
health.
can't stand up straight here and conduct this interview, but I could kind of do some squats or something
You can do squats, yeah, that'd be great.
and moving my arms, I guess, because I have to outlive you, or at least I have to live to 160,
Uh-huh.
see
Yeah,
how
I would
the hell
love to.
you're doing and to take care of you.
I would love to to see you do that, because then that's motivation for me to go even longer,
Yeah.
and actually the thing is, like you mentioned the word fun. We use that word a lot, fun. Everything's got to be fun. I mean, everything's got, like, we're asking people to do, most of what we're asking people to do is not what they were taught when they're growing up. I know, like you and I
Mhm.
have talked about that. And you and I both have had health problems in the past because of all the things we were taught growing up, whether intentionally or unintentionally. So we're asking people to do a lot of things different, but we want it to be fun. You got to enjoy yourself, right? And the funnest thing I can think of is not having to go to doctor's appointments, that aren't just an annual checkup. That's the most unfun thing I can think of. We don't want anybody to have to go and get a prescription filled either. Also unfun, because usually when you go to get your prescription filled, you go into a business that's lined with bad choices everywhere, actually.
Yeah.
So I don't even want you to go in there if you can avoid it. We
Yeah.
out in nature, and
That's the thing that gets me angry at the Republicans and the Democrats. Because
yeah.
the Republicans don't seem terribly concerned about having people have health insurance. And the
Mm.
Democrats seem to want you to keep going to the doctor all the time. I don't want to do either of these things.
Yeah, I would agree. And that's actually one of the reasons why we don't get into politics, because you usually end up somewhere in the middle. I
Yeah.
mean, unfortunately, it's a battle, it's a fight to get there. But the truth is somewhere in the middle. And actually your health is in the middle because it's all balance, right? So yeah, neither extreme is correct. I would agree with that. And that's why the standard that we're using is nature, because I do believe as long as nature tends to automatically rebalance. I listened to an old George Carlin routine recently that was actually redone by AI, so it was relevant to 2025 because he passed away in 2007, I think. You know who I'm talking about? George
Sure.
Carlin.
Sure.
Yeah, well, he talked about how we 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 had to we're all worried about protecting the earth, and making sure it's okay, when the reality is the earth doesn't give a damn about us, right? It'll like, set off a couple volcanoes, earthquakes, whatever, wipe all of us out, and within a short time it'll regenerate and heal itself on its own with no need for us. So that's kind of where we get our inspiration, is from nature. Nature always is seeking that balance point, and that's what we want people to decide is important, that they want to do, because it's going out of balance is apparently never going to be illegal, but it's also not illegal to seek that balance, to constantly be looking for it, in new ways. And of course, these are going to be ways that the corporations are not going to profit from. That's a key that you're on the right path, is that people can't really make money off of what you're doing. And I can tell you from what we're doing with our health optimization events. And by the way, our calendar is at plantbasedevents.info. Plantbasedevents.info does not take you to our website, but it takes you to Eventbrite, where you can follow us and hear about new events that we have. But but yeah, that's the thing. If you're doing something that somebody can't make money off of, because like I said, we're just a nonprofit, we're volunteering our time, we're not making money off these events, we're just at the edge of the envelope. Well, that's where the health is. Because for the most part, and yes, Glenn, it's going to take a while. I say to people, it's probably going to be till I'm like 110 till people really start zeroing in on what we're doing and recognize the importance, But until then, I've got, 55 more years of practice until I get to that point. And then when I do, I hope we have a lot more people going along with us, because it has to be a grassroots effort.
Yeah. I mean, the next 55 years are going to be rough unless enough people come along. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
the,
And
the climate trends are not good, my friend.
they're not. And here's another thing, we understand that. I mean, I don't claim to be clairvoyant. I cannot predict the future. If I could predict the future, I would have been a trillionaire a long time ago with my investments, of only a dollar probably. No, I mean, you just have to know a few things about the future. I don't know much, but the places that we're choosing to spend our time most recently, because the Florida place we've had for a while, like I said, I bought that land in 2015. That was 10 years ago. Haven't done anything with it. We may never do anything with it because it is low land. But Ecuador, we're in the Amazon rainforest between 2,500 and 3,000 feet above sea level. Mountain Ridge Farm here in Virginia, United States, we're at 4,000 feet above sea level. Uganda, where we take our health optimization safari, we're actually working with the nonprofit there. We're actually on their board of a Ugandan nonprofit. We're trying to develop permaculture for their all vegan school that they have, which people will get to visit in our health optimization safari. And they are at about 3,000 feet above sea level. They're right on the equator, too. That's the benefit. The Amazon rainforest in Ecuador, within 3 degrees of the equator. The projects in Uganda also, they're within a degree, I think, of the equator. So regardless of what happens to the rest of the world, okay, regardless, these communities will be sustainable going forward. They don't need any external inputs to have a high quality of life.
How about electricity?
Well, do you really need electricity? I don't know. Do you like if you could find a place where you had like minds, people having fun, people taking care of their health, they're not sick, they don't have chronic illness, they're not. Let's say they're not driving cars. There's not going to be any car accidents you have to go to the hospital for, right? None of that stuff's even going to happen. Uh, do you even need or want that? I mean, maybe not. But you could always use solar, no matter where you are. You know, solar technology is inexpensive, it's portable, it's obtainable. So nobody needs to be on the grid, if that's what you're asking. There's
Hmm.
in 2025, there is no need to be on the grid anymore, and you can still have full access, full internet, full electricity. That's what I'm saying. Things have changed, right, over time, and maybe that's why things have gotten so expensive. To kind of circle back around, because I've had this theory going. I'm like, well, what's another reason why things are so expensive? Well, maybe it's because in 1970s and 1980s, if I wanted a job, and let's say I was a kid, but even if I got a car, that job would have to be physically located close to where I was for the most part. I mean, it would just have to be, especially if I was younger. I was still living with my parents, or could only afford a small apartment or something. That's the way it would have to be. There was no option to connect with like minds, to find some work that I was truly, truly interested in with a hyper specific business that I could market out through the internet to the entire world simultaneously. Like, that's how we could do our health optimization events, only because of the internet. Before the internet, we would never be able to do these events that are so closely aligned with nature. But now we can do that. So I think that the US has become a premium place now, where you have to be very well off, very well established in order to survive financially and not be completely stressed out trying to make ends meet. And one of the reasons why is because of this dynamic of the internet, because now everyone has that opportunity to go live somewhere else and do whatever they want. And it's probably way more fulfilling than what that traditional job in the United States is. Just something to think about.
All right. So if people want to have fun on a cruise or an Indian dinner or a safari, they could find links to it all at a plantbaseddiet.org, right?
That's right.
And
Plantbaseddiet.org.
and then they could go to health optimization travel.
.org. Yes, healthoptimizationtravel.org has links to our safari, our cruise, and our house in the Amazon rainforest of Ecuador called La Casa Más Alta, which you can rent and experience the community. It's an intentional community, all vegan, 100% vegan, no chemicals.
All right. Now, you told me that, like me, you're not crazy about the term plant-based, right?
Uh, yeah, because I hear everybody's events. Let's put it this way. This is another talk we're going to give, is why people become ex-vegans, okay? What we've seen is people say, hey, I'm doing whole food plant-based. I'm eating healthy plant-based foods. I'm like, well, what does that mean? If you drill down far enough, you realize it doesn't mean anything. It could mean anything. Even just the term plant-based could mean you have some animal products mixed in there, but it doesn't come close to our nature aligned 6 pillars of healthy vegan food. So what happens, what we've seen with people who are vegan and become ex-vegan, is that they usually have health problems. And it's usually related to them thinking they were doing the best that they could, but they actually weren't. They weren't even close. And it's because of terms that are ambiguous that people make those mistakes. And that's why we've had to, that's why we developed our own nutritional standard, because we want to be very clear about what we're doing. We want to have a clear goal. We want to have a clear path. We want to have a clear framework on how to achieve this.
Well, I agree with you about the term plant-based, but I have to point out, Mike, if you turn around, you got it in your name.
I do. Yes, we do. I mean, keep in mind, we started our nonprofit back in 2014.
I
And
see.
at
So
the, t-
this is an opinion that has evolved,
yes,
and
and
you
that's
wouldn't
why
choose this name today if you were choosing it today.
that's right. Because what we want to do is we want to make it clear that we're all about your health and about not harming yourself. Because obviously, if you're vegan, we know you're not about harming animals. But what about yourself? This is why most ex-vegans become ex-vegans, is because they end up harming themselves in the process of practicing veganism. And we've defined the term too on our website called sustainable veganism. And that is where you have to do everything you can as far as practicable and possible to not harm your health while practicing veganism. So we only practice sustainable veganism. We do not practice regular veganism because that's not sustainable. You will quit or you'll be in serious pain for decades. Either in either one of those is not fun. that's a that's the thing. yeah, but but you bring up some great points, and we're always thinking about that, and that's why. Okay, let me get back to what you initially asked about, which our name. If we had to rename ourselves today, it probably would just be something like health optimization travel or health optimization events or something like that, because there are many paths to this. Now, we are a vegan organization, 100%, but just like you pointed out earlier in this interview, I don't think you have to do anything 100% to get almost all the benefits. Like you could do, Dr. T. Colin Campbell has mentioned, your body probably doesn't know the difference between 95% compliance or 100%. Probably doesn't know the difference. So we just want to let people know that not harming yourselves is the goal, whatever that means. So that's why we named everything health optimization cruise, health optimization safari, health optimization clubs, health optimization Indian buffet, right? Everything has that name. And we have potlucks too. We have farm to tables. Anything new that we've put together has that verbiage in it.
All right. Well, I'm counting on you to start a health optimization community.
There we go.
I
Yeah.
guess at a decent sea level and decent altitude, and you know, I might like to join that.
Yeah. I appreciate that you have interest in it, because that's all we need. We need enough people to want to do this and actually do it, voting with your dollars, that this grassroots effort becomes successful. And I think that when people see that you can go on without being chronically ill, right? Because I if I was to point out someone who lived their lives without being chronically ill, I don't know if I could name anyone right now. I mean, there's very few people. We need to normalize that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just like following the Mike Young story, so I want to have you on again in a few months and see what you're up to next.
Okay.
And you know, and I just like watching you get older, you know, without actually seeing you age. But I want to see you get closer and closer to 150.
And maybe we'll have a community in motion by the next time we chat.
Oh, that would be beautiful. That would be beautiful, but I don't think I'm going to do Florida. I went to college there. I loved it. I love
Yeah,
Florida a lot. There's, just when I'm in Florida, the air smells different than anywhere else.
really.
It's just a beautiful place.
Well, I would say
Um,
also one thing about Florida, okay, uh, is that when you go to Florida, almost everybody wants to be near the water on the coast. Almost everyone's there. If you go inside, interior, that's where our headquarters is. We're in the Ocala National Forest. We're under the canopy of trees. It's like no other place. It's so quiet too. Nobody's there. The elevation
mhm,
is higher. I mean, I've always loved it there. And that's where we started the organization 11 years ago. And
mhm.
I just, if you've never experienced that, I would highly recommend you experience that, because Denise and I, when we go down there in the winter, so many days we are walking in through the national forest there, and it's so quiet and peaceful, and it's excellent. It's not like the rest of Florida.
All right. So maybe we'll see you there.
All right.
Mike, take care. People can go to a plantbaseddiet.org and have some fun curated by Mike Young.
All
Take
right.
care, Mike.
All right. Thanks. Thank you, Glenn.